In Elena's eyes, I was the good husband, quiet, obedient, the type who never pushed back. That was why she slid the divorce agreement across the table to me as naturally as if she were asking for a glass of water. Just sign it. We need to humor the kid. Her lips were painted a sharp red, her smile casual and dismissive. I signed. Her best friend, watching from the side, bet that I'd be dutifully cooperating with the official filing in 20 days. Everyone was convinced I wouldn't change, but they didn't know that my silence wasn't weakness. It was patience stretched to its absolute limit. That day, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Nora. Ethan, will you marry me? Jackson was throwing another tantrum. He tossed his jacket onto the sofa like a child whose toy had been snatched away, his face dark and sulking. Elena stood next to him, soothing him like he was a moody younger brother. She patted his back, her tone so gentle it made it hard for me to breathe. I was standing in the entryway, still holding the grocery bags I just bought. When they looked up, it was as if they just remembered I existed. Elena glanced at me, her expression as faint as if she were looking through fog. She casually picked up a document from the coffee table and slapped it onto the dining table. Sign this. I paused, not processing it immediately. She pointed at the paper. Divorce agreement. Just sign it. We need to humor the kid. She tilted her head and smiled at Jackson, signaling, see? I can handle this. That smile made my chest constrict dully. I placed the grocery bags on the floor and walked to the table. The dense text of the agreement looked cold, but her tone was colder. It's just a formality. Don't overthink it. Elena's best friend, Bianca, sat nearby with her arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips like she was watching a reality show. Exactly. Just to keep Jackson happy. It's not like it's the first time you've played along. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out a chair and sat down. The words divorce agreement stung my eyes. As I gripped the pen, my throat felt blocked. In their mouths, this marriage was worth nothing more than a gesture. I took a deep breath, telling myself not to speak. Saying anything would be superfluous. When I signed my name, my hand was surprisingly steady, though my knuckles were white from gripping the pen. The moment the tip left the paper, Bianca laughed. Your hubby is so obedient, she said, glancing sideways at Elena. Elena, does he just do whatever you say? Elena picked up her wine glass, not answering, just taking a graceful, indifferent sip. Want to make a bet? She said. In 20 days, we go to the city clerk's office to file. Bianca's eyes lit up. Bet on what? Elena turned her head, the red wine swirling in her glass. Her voice was light, like she was telling a joke. Bet that he'll show up on time. She glanced at me, a look I couldn't decipher between mockery and certainty. Even if he's tearing up, he'll cooperate like a good boy. Jackson huffed from the side, clearly pleased by her words. I sat there, the sound around me feeling like they were coming from behind a wall. My ears heard clearly, but my heart was terrifyingly quiet. They were betting on me, betting on my reaction, my bottom line, betting on whether I'd roll over completely, betting on whether I'd cry. Was it absurd? I didn't even have the energy to laugh. I'm going to put the groceries away, I said, standing up. As I passed the entryway, I heard Bianca lower her voice. He really is a pushover. Elena didn't deny it, just gave a soft hum of agreement. When I walked out of the apartment complex, the sky had turned dark. The phone in my pocket buzzed. It was the message from Nora. I stood at the bottom of the steps, staring at the words on the screen. Ethan, will you marry me? Her profile picture was a photo from last autumn. The wind had messed up her hair, but the light in her eyes was incredibly clean. I stood under the street lamp, my finger hovering over the keyboard, but I didn't reply. It wasn't hesitation, it was restraint. I couldn't respond to her in this moment, using my emotional turmoil as a crutch. I inhaled the cold air and shoved the phone back into my pocket. That yes was burning in my chest, a flame ready to burst through the soil, but I forced it back down. Not now. I walked along the road outside the complex. My steps were slow, heavy like my heartbeat. The scene upstairs kept replaying in my mind. They sat on the sofa laughing, discussing my marriage like it was a throwaway TV plot. In their eyes, my signing was just me playing a role. And I had actually signed. Was this my place in Elena's heart? A phrase like humor the kid was enough to turn our entire marriage into a prop. Did I want to argue? Yes, but I hadn't, because the look Elena gave Jackson was far more tender than any she'd given me. I knew that whatever I said would be meaningless. I reached the intersection, pulled a cigarette from my pocket, then put it back. I'd quit a long time ago. I didn't want to start again. The phone buzzed again. Nora's second message. Was that too sudden? Don't mind me, I was just asking. She was always like this. Never forcing, never pushing, just waiting for my response. I leaned against a street-side tree and slowly closed my eyes. Nora's presence made me realize just how suffocating my life had been these past few years. Like a tense animal living on edge, suddenly touched gently on the back of the neck, realizing that tenderness actually existed. I took a deep breath, gripping the phone in my pocket, but still didn't reply. I couldn't give her an answer while drowning in emotion. She deserved a clean, thorough commitment, untainted by anyone else. I looked up toward the apartment. The lights were probably still on. Elena had likely tossed the agreement onto the table. They would be eating takeout, discussing where to go later, betting on whether I'd behave at the city clerk's office in 20 days. Thinking of this, I suddenly laughed. It was a bitter laugh, bordering on absurd. I had never been the protagonist in their story. I was just the collaborator they spoke of. The wind was chilly, so I pulled my coat tighter. The phone in my pocket felt hot in my hand. I imagined Nora waiting for my reply, wondering if she was worried or if she understood my silence. I suddenly felt that the yes in my chest was quietly spreading its wings. It hadn't disappeared. It was just waiting for the right time. I walked back home. When I unlocked the door, the apartment was quiet. The divorce agreement on the table was buried under a pile of magazines, like a discarded grocery list. I took off my coat and hung it up, moving deliberately. The light hit the corner of the table, and I could see my signature at the bottom of the document. Each stroke felt like my past endurance nailed to the paper. I stood there staring at it for a full minute. Then, I gently turned off the light. All these years, I had been too compliant. So compliant that they thought all they had to do was ask, and I would nod. So compliant they thought I had no bottom line. So compliant that even divorce could be used as a gambling chip. But I was starting to understand that some things couldn't be earned by enduring. I closed the door to the guest room, letting the darkness hide the emotion in my eyes. The yes I had suppressed was beating gently in my heart, reminding me, this time it was my turn to choose. It was nearly 11 when I returned to the living room. The lights were on, but the place felt void of life. The TV was playing to an empty room. The living room was a mess. Takeout boxes piled on the sofa, straws scattered on the coffee table like discarded wreckage. I changed into slippers, picked up the plastic bags from the floor, and put them in the trash. My movements weren't slow, but every step felt heavy. There were 2 cups in the sink, one mine, one Elena's. I paused while washing them, looking at the small scratch on the bottom of her cup, my chest feeling tight. These scratches were marks of the nights I'd stayed up with her. But now, the person staying by her side was someone else. The sound of running water drowned out the noise from the living room. A moment later, the bedroom door clicked open. Elena came out looking annoyed, her hair loose, makeup still smudged on her face. She was scrolling through her phone. "You're back?" she asked. I nodded. She frowned. "Why are you so late?" "I thought you'd come up to check on things." "You asked me to sign the agreement," I said, setting down the cup. "I don't need to be involved in your issues anymore." Elena choked on her words, then her face went cold. What is that tone supposed to mean? I didn't continue, just walked to the fridge to put away the ingredients. As I bent down, a deliberately lowered male voice came from the bedroom. "Elena, who is it?" Jackson stood in the doorway, barefoot, leaning against the frame. He looked impatient, like he was looking at an annoying passerby. "You two carry on," I said, closing the fridge. "I'm going to the study." I'd taken 2 steps when Elena suddenly spoke up. "Ethan, grow up a little. Don't cause trouble at a time like this." I stopped. Grow up? Cause trouble? She had said countless things to me over the years, but this sentence felt like a sharp object piercing my chest. Bianca's voice drifted in from the living room. I hadn't realized she was still there. She was holding a bag of snacks. "Ethan, don't be so sulky," she said, sitting on the sofa. "Jackson has a bit of a temper, but what's the big deal for a grown man like you to humor him?" I turned to look at her. "Why should I humor him?" "Because he makes Elena happy," Bianca said, as if it were obvious. "You guys are in a separation agreement phase, anyway. Can't you be a little more considerate?" The sentence felt like a slap. In their eyes, I'd been married for years, treated like I was invisible, ordered around, and now I had to be considerate of her boy toy. I held back, keeping my tone from becoming aggressive. "How you handle it is your business. I'm not getting involved." Elena frowned. "You weren't like this before." I rubbed my temples. What I was before doesn't matter. The air froze. Jackson, who had been silent, suddenly sneered. "With that attitude, do you think I'm less than you?" I looked at him calmly. "We won't have any intersection in the future. There's no need for comparison." He was irritated by the comment, walking over to Elena and grabbing her arm. "Let's go back to the room." Elena let him pull her, but she looked back at me. "Don't overthink things. After this blows over, I might still need your cooperation." I didn't respond. They thought I was habituated to obedience, that I would continue to be the on-call tool. But now I said nothing, just walked into the study and closed the door. The study lamp was dim. Outside the French windows, the apartment complex was silent. I sat back in a chair, my hands still damp from cleaning the kitchen. My phone lit up. "Nora, are you home?" Just 3 words, but the tension in my shoulders instantly released. I dried my hands with a towel and stared at the message for a few seconds. I knew I shouldn't pass my current mood onto her. She wasn't a wound in my marriage. She was the light. Finally, I just replied, "I'm home." After sending the message, I placed the phone on the desk and didn't continue the conversation. The silence lasted about 10 minutes. Then a crisp knock sounded. Bianca pushed the door open, her tone impatient. "Ethan, don't be so cold. Jackson is young. It's normal for him to have a temper. Just let him have his way." I looked up at her. "Is he your child or mine?" Bianca choked, a flash of embarrassment crossing her face. She coughed. "Just don't be petty. Everyone relax. Don't act like it's a huge deal." I looked at her without speaking. Unsettled by my calm, she retreated to the door and added, "Once the 20-day act is over, Elena will settle down. Don't be stubborn now." After she closed the door, the study returned to silence. I leaned back, details involuntarily floating before my eyes. Elena and Jackson talking in the bedroom. Bianca scrolling on her phone in the living room, chewing snacks. Me sitting alone in this study that was treated like a storage room. I used to be the pillar of this home. Wherever I was, the home was. Now I was like a temporary tenant, breathing cautiously. I didn't know how long I sat there until my stomach began to ache dully. I remembered I hadn't eaten dinner. When I walked out of the study, the living room was quiet. The bedroom door was shut tight, muffled laughter occasionally drifting out. I poured a glass of water, pausing for a few seconds as my hand touched the glass. I suddenly realized a problem. All the effort I had put into this marriage had been casually erased by them. I remembered waiting up when she worked late, taking care of her all night when she was sick, preparing everything in advance for her events, giving her an out whenever she needed to save face. But with one grow up and one humor the kid, she had pushed me to the lowest position. I drank a mouthful of cold water. My stomach felt colder. When I returned to the study, my phone buzzed again. "Nora, are you okay?" I stared at the text, my finger hovering over the screen. She could catch my silence, but never pried. She wasn't like Elena, nor Bianca, and certainly not Jackson. She wouldn't order me around, wouldn't use me, wouldn't treat me as a disposable asset. I typed, "I'm fine." A few seconds later, I deleted it. I replaced it with something steadier, "Doing well." She replied instantly, "That's good." 2 words pressed down some of the suffocating weight in my chest. I turned off the screen, letting the room sink into darkness again. Outside, it was quiet. The occasional laughter didn't belong to me. When I lay down, I truly realized a fact. It wasn't that I was used to being silent. It was that they were used to my silence. They felt it was only natural for me to yield, to help, to bear the burden, to coax people, to participate in their emotional dramas. But today, simply by saying, "I'm not participating," they became unsettled. I closed my eyes. Their reactions made me more lucid than any mockery could. This marriage had long become a burden solely carried by me. And that, "I'm waiting for you" from Nora, just a few words had pulled me out of the mud. The divorce agreement sat in the drawer. I didn't touch it again. On the surface, nothing had changed, but I knew very clearly that these 20 days were just a countdown. When I got to the office the next day, I was 30 minutes early. The lights in the workspace had just flickered on. I organized my files and reviewed the projects I had been putting off. My assistant froze when she pushed the door open. "Ethan, you're early today." I nodded. "Give me the progress charts for the last 2 weeks." She looked like she wasn't sure if she heard me right, hesitating a moment before agreeing. Before, I would always split my energy with various household chores, solving problems for others whenever they asked. Today, I cleared my desk and focused only on my own business. The efficiency was so high even I wasn't used to it. At 9:30, my supervisor passed by my desk. Seeing me typing continuously for 2 hours, he couldn't help but stop. "You're on fire today." I replied faintly, "Things to handle." He probably wanted to ask something, but seeing my calm expression, he stopped. Near lunch break, my colleague Ryan leaned over with his coffee. "Ethan, everything okay at home?" I didn't look up. "Great." The answer was short, the tone no longer soft like before. He shook his cup slightly, not daring to ask more. I continued processing the documents in hand. Many people thought I didn't care about anything, but that wasn't it. I used to just prioritize myself last. Now that I put myself forward a bit, they started getting uncomfortable. In the afternoon meeting, the director said a project needed a lead. Usually I would step back and let the younger colleagues get the experience, but this time I spoke up directly. "I'll take it." The conference room went quiet for a second, shocked by my tone. The director looked at me for 2 seconds, then nodded in agreement. After the meeting, several partners came to shake hands, their attitudes more serious than before. I could feel my rhythm surging forward, unsuppressed by the chaos at home. This state gave me a long-lost sense of solidity. When I got off work in the evening, the sky was darkening. My phone lit up as I grabbed my coat. Nora sent a message. Did it go smoothly today? My finger paused. I replied, very smooth. She asked, so you're in a good mood? I stared at the line, imagining the tone of her voice, feeling a gentle brush against my heart. Just as I was about to reply, a call came in. I knew the number too well. Elena. I answered. Her voice was impatient. Where are you? Office. I have a dinner tonight. Come with me. The client knows you. I gripped the steering wheel, my tone steady. That's not convenient for me. She was silent for a second, followed by obvious suppressed anger. Ethan, don't be emotional. It's not emotion, I said, rephrasing. I have my own plans. The other end was quiet for half a second. Then came the sound of frustration. Why'd you been like this the last 2 days? You weren't like this before. I looked at the traffic ahead, offering no explanation. She asked, what is wrong with you? I answered flatly, nothing. Then I hung up. The phone went quiet, but I could imagine the expression on her face. Surprise, loss of control, and a bit of disbelief. I never refused her before, so she thought I never would. But this time, a simple not convenient threw her into disarray. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a small noodle shop near the office. The lights were dim and quiet, completely different from home. When I finished eating, my phone buzzed again. Nora, still busy? I replied, eating dinner. She alone? I stared at the screen for a few seconds and typed. Alone is good. In that moment, I wasn't complaining or being sentimental. I was just stating a fact. She didn't pry, simply sending a simple word. Okay. I put the phone on the table, my heart strangely steady. When I walked out, the night wind brushed my face. I bought a hot drink and walked while sipping it, trying to suppress the restlessness in my throat. As I approached my car, someone messaged me. Elena, where are you tonight? I looked at the sentence and didn't reply immediately. Less than 10 seconds later, she sent a second one. Are you mad at me? I placed the cup on the roof of the car before slowly typing. You're overthinking it. She replied quickly. Then why didn't you come? I have my own plans. She was silent for a long time, finally sending a stinging message. Are you flirting with someone recently? I frowned and replied directly. No. She asked again. Then why have you suddenly become so cold? I didn't continue the chat, just locked the screen. I didn't want anyone treating me as an on-call servant anymore. Driving back, I felt torn between two forces. One was the irritation forced by Elena. The other was the calm brought by Nora's gentle concern. When I got home, I pushed open the door to the living room. The lights were on, and Bianca was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. Seeing me, she pulled her legs back. Your hubby is back. I didn't respond, changing my shoes and heading for the study. Bianca suddenly called out, Ethan, why are you being so stubborn lately? This attitude isn't like you. I spoke calmly. I'm just compartmentalizing my time. You never used to do that. She stared at me as if looking at a stranger. I also remember how you all treated me before. Bianca was stunned into silence, her expression turning ugly. She hesitated, her voice lowering. Jackson isn't in a good mood today, and Elena is pretty upset because of you. Why don't you go in and say a few words? No. Ethan, doing this will. I interrupted her. I have my boundaries. Bianca froze. I walked into the study and closed the door. Outside, there was silence for a moment, then Bianca muttered, What is going on today? I sat at the desk and spread out the day's documents. My mind wasn't as chaotic as the previous days. Instead, it was frighteningly clear. I began to break down, plan, and advance the tasks at hand bit by bit. That focus shut out all the noise around me. Around 10 o'clock, I poured a glass of water and stood by the window looking out. The air was cold, the night heavy, but my chest no longer felt blocked. The phone screen lit up. Nora, rest early. I leaned against the window and typed. You too? She replied, Okay. When I woke up in the morning, the living room was exceptionally quiet. Bianca wasn't there. Neither were Elena or Jackson. It was as if all the anger from last night had been compressed into the air, but no one mentioned it. I washed up and grabbed my briefcase to leave. Just as I reached the entryway, Elena's bedroom door swung open. She stood there, hair tied back loosely, looking unwell. Where were you last night? I replied, Study. I'm asking where you went before that. I got dinner. Her gaze locked onto me, as if trying to find something on my face. You never used to be cold to me like this all of a sudden. I put on my shoes. You called me yesterday to help you deal with your social circle. I didn't want to go. She was stung by the sentence. Didn't want to go? In the past, whenever I said a word, you were there. The past is the past. Her breathing became erratic. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to answer like that. There was an unspeakable stiffness in the air. She suddenly asked, Ethan, are you seeing someone? I glanced at her. No. She asked again, are you sure? Sure. She stared at me for a few seconds, seemingly wanting to verify my tone, but I gave her no further explanation. She seemed angered by my calmness, the anxiety in her eyes turning sharp. Don't forget, we're going to the city clerk in 20 days. If you want to throw a tantrum, wait until after that. I gripped my bag strap, my tone steady. Understood. She bit her lip and slammed the door. I didn't linger, heading straight out. As I drove out of the complex, my emotions didn't fluctuate much, but my heart did go cold for a moment. She said wait until after that, as if I only needed to maintain my obedience. She had never treated me as a person deserving of respect. When I arrived at the company, not long after I sat down, my supervisor called me into the conference room. Ethan, your performance is good lately. It's just... He paused for 2 seconds. Is your temper a bit tight these days? I asked, tight how? He sighed. You shot down Ryan's proposal directly yesterday. Your tone was hard. He was scared. I recalled it. My tone hadn't been soft, but the flaws in the proposal were obvious, and I didn't have the patience to beat around the bush. I said, I'll take note. The supervisor looked at me for a moment and nodded. You've been steady all these years, just too tolerant. Sometimes when you endure for too long, people get used to you not speaking up. I didn't answer. He patted my shoulder. It's good that you're like this now. Just don't push yourself too hard. I nodded. After the meeting, I returned to my office to continue the project. At lunch, Ryan brought his tray to my table, cautious. Ethan, did I do something wrong yesterday? I closed the file. You're fine. I just pointed out the problem directly. His shoulders relaxed. I thought you were unhappy with me. I waved my hand. Don't overthink it. His expression finally returned to normal. The project moved fast in the afternoon. I finished a portion ahead of schedule. As I was packing up my laptop to leave, my phone buzzed. Nora sent a message. Busy today? I sat in the chair, looking at the question, and my mood instantly lightened. I replied, busy but smooth. She said, want to grab dinner together? I'm nearby. I hesitated for a few seconds, not out of guilt, but suddenly realizing I was more tired today than the previous days. I replied, sure. She replied quickly, I'll wait for you downstairs. I walked downstairs briskly and saw her standing by the road, coat buttoned, hair slightly messed by the wind. She smiled when she saw me. In that moment, I realized even my breathing was easier. You look more tired today than before, she said, looking up at me. I said, workload was heavier. She nodded. Whatever you want to eat today, I'll keep you company. Her tone was steady, no pressure, no emotion to manage. I took her to a nearby diner. She ordered a few light dishes. After the waiter left, she looked up at me. Are you under pressure recently? I drank some water. Sort of. Family stuff? She asked. I didn't deny it. Yeah. She wanted to say something, but held back, softening her tone. You can tell me, but it's okay if you don't. I was silent for a few seconds, asking, if it were you, how would you handle it? Her eyes were serious. Stand firm first. People pressure you because you've let them get used to pressing. The sentence landed deep in my heart. Halfway through the meal, my phone vibrated. It was Elena. I didn't answer. She called 3 times in a row. Nora looked at me. Want to take it? I shook my head. Talk later. She nodded and didn't ask again. Towards the end of the meal, Elena sent a message. Ethan, are you out? Followed by, you better come home right now. I knew that tone too well. Seeing me check my phone, Nora said, if it's important, you should go back. No rush, I said. She froze, as if gently touched by my words. After dinner, I drove her to the entrance of her complex. Before walking in, she looked back. You're more composed today than yesterday. I smiled. Thanks. She said softly, you're good like this. After she went in, I got back in the car. Looking at the reflection of the headlights, I finally opened Elena's message. She had sent another one. Jackson lost his temper today. I've been calming him down until now, and you're out eating? I stared at the sentence for a few seconds, my fingers slowly clenching. I replied, it's normal for me to eat out. She replied almost instantly, you weren't like this before. I leaned back against the seat. Now it was different. After the message was sent, she was silent for a long time. When I was almost home, she sent one sentence, we'll talk when you get back. The tone was full of repression and anger. Driving into the garage, I didn't feel panic or tension, just that the air tonight was colder than previous nights. When I pushed open the door to the living room, Jackson was sitting on the sofa, his face clearly disgruntled. Elena stood at the kitchen door. Seeing me, she said, "Why are you back so late?" I hung on my coat. "I came back after eating." Jackson gave a cold snort. "Think you're single?" I glanced at him and didn't respond. "See me like this." Elena's tone became more urgent. "I needed your help today, and you disappeared without a word." I replied, "I had something to do." "What is more important than me?" she asked. I looked up at her. "My own life." She was stunned for 2 seconds by my tone, seemingly surprised I dared to be so direct. Jackson suddenly stood up. "Ethan, did you grow a spine recently?" I didn't back down, just looked at him faintly. "I don't want to argue with you." He took a step forward. "You don't want to argue? You're giving me attitude." I remained calm. "Just because you're in a bad mood doesn't mean I have to keep you company." The living room air instantly tightened. Elena tried to grab him, but he shook her off lightly. He reached out to poke my shoulder. "If I'm unhappy, you have to fix it." I dodged his hand. "You think too highly of yourself." In that instant, the entire living room felt like a wire had snapped. Elena finally couldn't help raising her voice. "Jackson, stop making a scene." Jackson sneered. "Look at his attitude now." I watched the two of them argue, neither intervening nor getting pulled into their rhythm. Jackson threw a cushion and slammed the door as he left. The bang shook the whole apartment. Elena stood there, her face terribly pale. She looked at me. "You weren't like this before." I said only one thing. "This is the normal me." She froze, as if she didn't know how to respond. The living room was terrifyingly quiet. I turned and went into the study, closing the door. In that moment, I clearly heard the sound of the crack between me and them truly breaking open. After the study door closed, I leaned back in the chair, listening to the lack of sound outside. Elena didn't come in, didn't knock. Only occasional footsteps pacing the living room, then stopping. I saved all the files on my computer and checked the time. It was nearing 11. The lamp illuminated the desk. My emotions weren't as chaotic as previous days. That suffocating feeling had slowly receded, leaving only a dull coldness. Close to midnight, a soft knock came from the door. "Come in," I said. Elena walked in, her movements small, as if afraid to startle me. She stood at the door, gripping the hem of her nightgown, unable to speak for a while. I looked at her. Something wrong. Her breath hitched. "Ethan, can we talk?" I nodded. "Speak." She walked to the desk, choosing her words carefully. "Tonight, that wasn't what I wanted. I didn't expect him to treat you like that." I replied steadily. "I don't need you to explain for him." Her nose turned white as if stung. "I'm not speaking for him. I just feel you're very distant from me right now." I sat up straight. "We're getting divorced." She froze, her throat moving. The agreement was, just talk that day. I looked at her. She forced herself to continue. "Jackson is young. He likes to act out. I thought you wouldn't take it seriously. You've always been accommodating. I didn't expect you to take it so personally." That sentence felt like compressing all past grievances into a nail and driving it in. I clenched my fingers. "You mistake my tolerance for never changing." She frowned. "That's not what I mean. I'm saying—" I interrupted her. "You asked me to sign the divorce agreement to soothe his temper. You thought it wouldn't affect me. So now that I have a reaction, you think I've changed." She inhaled sharply. "I had a little wine that day. I spoke too harshly. You're like this when you're sober, too." She froze, as if it were the first time being called out like this. I continued. "In this marriage, the tired one isn't you." Elena's eyes instantly reddened, but she tried hard to hold it back. "I asked you to come back today because I want to talk properly. I don't want us to be this cold." I looked at her. "Are you talking for us or to stabilize Jackson?" The air tightened after that sentence. Her fingers trembled. "Ethan, how can you think of me like that? Have I not been good to you all these years?" I didn't answer. It wasn't about being good or bad. It was about never seeing me as a person who needed to be seen. She would never understand that. Receiving no response, her voice grew weaker. "The 20 days are almost up. Are you really going to the city clerk's office?" I looked up. "You said it was a bet that day." I took it seriously. Her eyelashes trembled violently. I said that in anger. I didn't want us to really get to that step. Leaning back, my tone unhurried, I said, "When I signed that day, you didn't hesitate at all." Her breath hitched. "I didn't expect you to sign so quickly." I asked. "When you pushed it to me, what else could I do?" She bit her lip, her shoulders shaking slightly. After a moment, she whispered, "You used to comfort me. No matter what I said, you would take a step back." I spoke slowly. "I used to think stepping back would make us both more comfortable." She looked up at me. I withdrew my gaze. Later, I realized, "It just made you think my retreating was expected." She gasped a soft, sharp sound as if her breath had been caught. She suddenly sat in the chair next to me. Ethan, tell me, is there any possibility for us to continue? I'm asking for real. It was the first time she had asked me in such a tone. My fingers moved slightly, but I didn't waver. Do you think we look like we have a possibility? She stared at me, tears swirling in her eyes. What if I say I'm willing to change? I didn't avoid her gaze. What you want to change isn't yourself. You just don't want to separate from me and have to face Jackson anew. The back of her neck clearly tightened. How can you think of me that way? I said flatly. You say Jackson is young, yet you've been led by the nose by him. You made me sign, made me go to the city clerk because you were afraid he'd throw a fit. But you never thought about how I felt. As the words landed, her shoulders slumped as if weighed down by stones. She opened her mouth to argue, but couldn't say a word. A few seconds later, she closed her eyes, suppressing her emotions. I admit I haven't done well recently, but I thought you wouldn't be this cruel. I'm not cruel. I just did what I needed to do. She stared at me. Will you really? Leave me no leeway. I was silent for a few seconds. I knew very well that if I nodded now, she would immediately grab that faint hope and continue treating me as the safe choice. But that wasn't the relationship I wanted. I spoke. Elena, we've been tired for too long. Her eyes lost focus instantly. I'm not doing this to spite you, I continued. But getting to where we are today wasn't caused in a single day. She covered her forehead, seemingly unable to hold up. You weren't like this before. You wouldn't be this absolute. My voice was calm. I used to think endurance could earn respect. She seemed utterly crushed by that sentence, her breathing alarmingly chaotic. The study was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I pushed my chair back. Tomorrow, let's go file the paperwork. She looked up, her pupils dilating. You really want a divorce? I nodded. Her tears finally fell, but she didn't cry out loud, just shaking her head continuously. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean to really divorce. I just wanted you to stay with me, to make me feel secure. I asked, and what makes me secure? She couldn't speak. I looked at the woman in front of me, the person I used to eat with, decorate the house with, plan the future with. Now all that was left was panic and a dependency she couldn't grasp. In that moment, I understood that our problem was never a specific argument, nor Jackson, but that she never treated the marriage as something involving two people. And I had finally let go. I stood up. Get some rest. She sat there, unable to keep up with my rhythm. Ethan, let's talk tomorrow, okay? I didn't agree or refuse, just gently close the door. Walking out of the study, I heard a suppressed gasp from inside. Not a heartbreaking wail, just the sound of someone compressing all their emotions into their chest until they couldn't hold it. I paused for half a second, but didn't look back. The downstairs lights hit the floor. The breath I had been holding had settled. No more fluctuations. This marriage had gone far enough. The city clerk's office stood in the winter wind, its signage conspicuous and cold. I arrived neither early nor late, at 8:20, just as the doors were opening. I stood at the bottom of the steps, watching the traffic push forward. My fingers were in my pockets, neither clenched nor trembling. Half a minute later, a white sedan braked sharply in front of me. Elena pushed the door open and got out, almost tripping on her heels. She held the car door to steady herself, her face clearly showing a lack of sleep. Jackson followed close behind, sunglasses covering half his face, lifting his chin when he saw me. Elena took a breath and walked toward me. You're early, I replied. Didn't want to drag it out. Hearing this, she paused, but said nothing more. Jackson circled to her side. Since we're here, let's get it done quickly. I have things to do today. His tone was like rushing someone to leave. I glanced at him and didn't respond. Elena frowned. Jackson, don't be like that. He pouted. Didn't you say he should cooperate? Her fingers visibly tightened. I stood by, watching the two of them entangled at the entrance like watching a play that had nothing to do with me. The staff opened the main doors, letting the line enter. I took the lead up the steps. Elena flustered for a step, then hurried to catch up. Ethan, let's talk inside. I nodded. Okay. Walking into the hall, the heat hit my face, softening the air instantly. Two couples were already waiting, one silent, one suppressing tears. The sight of the three of us walking in attracted quite a few looks. Jackson muttered. What are they looking at? Never seen a divorce. I walked straight past him to the check-in kiosk. The machine spit out a number, 8014. I handed the slip to Elena. Her hand trembled slightly as she took it. We sat in the waiting area, 3 chairs in a row. Jackson propped his leg up on another chair, looking agitated. Elena sat between him and me, hands clasped together. After a few minutes, she spoke. Ethan, was what you said yesterday too absolute? I replied, no. Her breathing became erratic. I know I was wrong that day. It's not that I don't care about you, But you've been so cold lately, I couldn't react. I stared at the electronic screen ahead, not looking at her. We already signed. She grew anxious. The agreement was impulsive, but we haven't filed yet, right? I spoke in a low voice. The moment you pushed it to me, I knew which way to go. She slumped as if hit. Jackson glanced at me. Elena, stop agonizing over it. It's just a procedure. He doesn't care. Why are you making it so heavy? Elena suddenly turned her head. Shut up. Jackson froze. What did you say? She repeated, shut up. His face turned a shade of green. It was the first time I'd seen her get angry at him. But that momentary reaction was just a product of her panic, not because she suddenly realized anything. I didn't take that ripple to heart. The screen flashed to A014. I stood up. Our turn. Elena followed me, her steps lagging. Jackson dawdled behind. I'll wait outside. Hurry up. The clerk handed over the dissolution forms for us to confirm our information. I checked mine and signed. The pen tip landed on the paper without hesitation. Elena looked at me, her movements noticeably slower. The clerk reminded her, Ma'am, please sign. Her fingers trembled twice before she finally wrote her name. When handing the paper back, she kept her head down, afraid to look. The clerk took the materials. Please wait for your copies. We returned to the seating area. Elena asked softly, Ethan, have we really reached this step? I didn't look at her, only said, yes. Her intake of breath was as light as the wind. Suddenly, a notification rang through the hall. Number A014 to window 3. I stood up. She stood up too, simply a few beats slower. We walked to window 3. The clerk placed 2 stamped documents on the counter. The final decrees. Elena stared at them, her eyes red. The clerk said, please confirm receipt. I reached out, picked up one, checked the name, and put it in my folder. In that moment, my emotions were completely flattened. No suppression, no stinging pain. Elena watched my movements, looking as if all her strength had been drained. You are this calm. I looked back at her. What reaction did you hope for? Her throat blocked, unable to speak. Jackson, seeing us leave the window from outside the lobby, immediately walked over. Done. I nodded. He put his hands in his pockets, looking relaxed. All right then, let's go. Elena, come back with me later. Didn't you say you were taking me to— Shut up, Elena whispered. Jackson frowned. You again? I said shut up. She repeated it, but there was no strength in her voice this time, only chaos. I looked at them, not participating. She suddenly looked up at me. Ethan, are you really? Not sad at all. I slowly lit up my phone screen. The message was still there. Will you marry me? The light from the phone reflected on her face. She froze, her eyes completely losing focus. It seemed to take all her strength to ask, when did you? And her. I took the phone back. I'll date after the divorce. Her legs went weak, and she had to hold a wall to stay up. Jackson was confused. What do you mean? What her? He has a woman. Elena didn't answer, just stared at me, her voice trembling like it was about to break. You clearly never looked at anyone else before. I said, before, we hadn't reached this step. Jackson raised his voice. Did you run off with someone? No wonder your temper changed. I looked at him. Don't interpret everything in a way only you can understand. His face flushed red. You. Elena suddenly grabbed him. Stop arguing. Jackson was unconvinced. You're still protecting him? She didn't explain, just lowered her head, looking at the ground, motionless. Wind poured in from the hall in trance. Her shoulders shook violently. I put the documents in the folder and clasped it shut. Formalities are done. I'm leaving. Elena looked up. You're leaving now? Yes. Her lips were white, as if she wanted to call me back, but no sound came out. Jackson stood beside her, utterly useless, only glaring at me. I walked around them, down the steps. The winter wind scraped my face cold, but my heart was light. Walking away step by step, I didn't look back. Whether anyone behind me regretted, it was no longer a weight I needed to carry. After leaving the city clerk's office, I didn't go back to the company immediately, but went to a nearby parking lot. The moment the car door closed, the interior was so quiet I could hear my own breathing. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Nora. She asked if it went smoothly. I leaned back in the driver's seat, looking at the line of text. My fingers tapped the screen a few times, deleted, then tapped again. Finally, I just replied, "It's over." "Soon," she replied. "Dinner tonight?" I looked at the text, suddenly realizing I hadn't truly adapted to this transition yet. However, my emotions weren't chaotic, just a clear sense of demarcation. I replied, "Okay, 7?" She sent a yes. I put the phone in the center console and started the car. The wind on the street was still cold, The roadside sycamores bare, looking stripped clean and efficient. Halfway there, the company called to remind me of an afternoon meeting. I acknowledged it and turned the car toward the office. When I parked downstairs, I saw an acquaintance. Caleb, a rookie I used to mentor now in another project group. He was standing at the main entrance, seemingly waiting for someone. He paused when he saw me, then walked over. Ethan, I nodded. What are you doing here? Waiting for files. He paused, then asked, I heard. You want to file today? The news had evidently leaked partially, but no one in the company would gossip openly. The circle was small, so people inevitably knew. I replied, done. He was silent for a moment, weighing his words. So, are you okay? I glanced at him. You don't need to say that stuff to me. He laughed a bit awkwardly. I just think it's a pity. It's not a pity, I replied directly. He froze, then nodded, asking no more. He probably realized I wasn't putting on a brave face, but had truly put things in their place. We entered the elevator together. He got off on the 8th floor, I went to the 12th. No one spoke in the elevator, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Back in the office, I put the divorce decree in the back of the drawer. Not hiding it deliberately, just didn't need it on display. The afternoon meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. My focus remained sharp. No one could tell anything was different. After the meeting, the project manager came over to coordinate schedules with me, his tone normal, without any extra concern. I felt relieved. At closing time, I grabbed my coat and headed to the parking lot. The sky had darkened, and the lot lights flickered on one by one, reflecting on the cars. I messaged Nora. Almost there. She replied, me too. The restaurant we agreed on wasn't far, a solid bistro. The location wasn't conspicuous, and it wasn't crowded. When I arrived, she was already waiting at the door. She wore a long gray coat, scarf neatly arranged. Her expression was gentle when she saw me. No probing for emotions, no deliberate distance. She walked up to me and asked softly, done with work? I nodded. Everything's handled. We went inside and sat. The warm yellow lighting and good soundproofing blocked out almost all noise. As the tea was served, she looked at me and said, your state today is calmer than I expected. I took the cup. You didn't want to ask if I was sad? She shook her head. I can tell if you're a mess. When you're messy, you don't talk. You just push everything forward. Today, you don't have that vibe. I was silent for 2 seconds. When you said you were willing to wait for me, were you serious? She looked at me, taking a moment before speaking. I'm not sure when you'll walk out of it, but I'm sure I didn't approach you just to fill a void. I heard her clearly. She continued, that sense of responsibility you have, suppressed, unspoken, but palpable. I like that. I didn't respond, just drank some tea. She added, but I'm in no rush. That sentence stabilized the air, preventing the feeling of being pushed. After the food arrived, we didn't discuss heavy topics, just exchange progress on our recent work. She said she was preparing a new collaborative project and needed a stable supplier. I said I could help connect her with channels, but wouldn't interfere with her plan. She smiled. I like how you draw clear lines. Halfway through the meal, she suddenly said, you don't need to define what we are immediately. I looked up at her. Her gaze was steady. You ended a relationship today. I shouldn't make you start another one in the next moment. Take your time. I asked, if I need a little time, will you think I'm dragging it out? She answered no. After dinner, we walked out. She walked me to my car. The street lamp hit her coat. The wind blew, and she pulled her scarf up a bit. Looking at me, she said, if one day you've moved past it, tell me. Not to compensate, not to prove anything. Just that you're willing to walk, that's enough. I didn't give a promise immediately, nor did I avoid it. I just nodded. She understood the reaction and didn't pry further. Drive safe. You too. She turned and left, her steps efficient. No pauses. I got in the car, started it, and as the headlights turned on, I leaned back in the seat for a few seconds. Not hesitation, just confirming the boundary in my heart. My phone screen lit up on the side, a notification from the company group chat. I turned it off and placed the phone face down. Driving back, I didn't play music. The city lights swept past the window one by one, slicing the day's chaos into fragments. Back home, I put the kettle on and poured a glass of water. The living room was quiet. The files I brought back earlier were on the table. I flipped through a few pages, then organized them. When the steam dissipated, I sat on the sofa, lit up my phone, and scrolled to a blank chat box. I didn't send a message to anyone, just looked at the blank space. It wasn't loneliness, but the quiet before a new life began. I leaned back into the sofa and closed my eyes. The air smelled of nothing, yet it was clearer than any night before. In the week following the filing of the city clerk, I sorted through all the backlog of work. During the department meeting, I broke down several dragging projects into clear nodes with distinct responsibilities. The team execution became sharp. A few colleagues joked that I seemed to have switched modes, but their tone lacked sting. It sounded more like relief. I didn't explain anything, just continued doing what needed to be done. Approaching the weekend, the company scheduled an important client communication meeting, requiring me to lead. The meeting went smoothly. Client feedback was more positive than expected, putting future collaboration on the agenda. When we adjourned, the boss patted my shoulder, telling me to get some rest. I didn't feel tired, just felt my mind was cleanly swept for the first time in a long time. After work, I met Nora at a restaurant on the south side of the city. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the river, and the wind against the glass created a stable quiet. I arrived a few minutes early. The waiter seated me and poured water. I watched the river surface outside. The lights reflected in the water shone evenly. Moments later, she entered, dressed simply, walking steadily. Her eyes brightened when she saw me, but without exaggerated emotion. She sat down, folded her scarf aside, and said to me, "Good mood today?" I nodded. "Work is moving well." She looked slightly relieved. "That's good." We ordered. She pushed her cup over for me to taste, saying it wasn't too sweet. I took a sip. It was indeed smooth. As dishes arrived, she asked about the client. I spoke briefly, no detours. She listened seriously, following every detail. This mode of communication was clean, smooth, with no emotions trapped in the middle. Halfway through the meal, 2 people at the next table left. The empty space let the outside light shine directly in. She turned her face to look for 2 seconds, then withdrew her gaze. "Your current state is much clearer than when I first met you." I asked her, "Was I like then?" She thought for a moment. "Someone holding their breath. You didn't speak slowly, but your tone felt like you didn't dare push forward." I didn't refute it. She wasn't stating a grievance, but a fact. After dinner, we walked to the parking lot. Many cars, few people. The lights stretched into long shadows on the ground. She stopped by her car, twirling her keys in her palm, and looked at me. "Want to grab lunch tomorrow?" "No special arrangements, just sitting down." I said, "Sure." She nodded, opened the car door, then looked back. "Drive safe." I waited until her car drove off before getting in mine. All the way back, I played no music. The interior silence was just right. Back home, I showered and reorganized some old items into the closet. Not a deliberate purge, just adjusting the space to be more convenient. The next morning, I handed off tasks to colleagues early and met Nora at a small bistro for lunch. Not luxurious, but the flavor was reliable, and it wasn't crowded. Just after sitting down, she handed me a file. "The supplier list you mentioned last time. I screened it based on your direction. Take a look when you have time." I opened it. The organization was clear, the logic following a specific thread. "You can submit this directly," I said. She smiled. "That makes me feel better." After lunch, we walked out. She shielded her eyes from the sun. "Busy this afternoon?" "It's okay." She nodded. "I'm heading back then. Message me if anything comes up." Her tone was natural, not clingy, not distant. It was comfortable. Work continued for a few weeks. My projects advanced steadily, with frequency and efficiency much higher than before. Colleagues gradually got used to my distinct rhythm, and collaboration became smoother. Nora occasionally sought me out to discuss cooperation or grab a casual meal, maintaining a sense of propriety. I could feel her approaching, but she never demanded speed in my response. This method gave me no burden. The turning point happened on a generic Tuesday afternoon. Just as I walked out of the conference room, my phone showed missed calls and a text. All from Elena. She said in the text she was downstairs and asked me to come down. I stood in the hallway, not replying immediately. The light hit the floor tiles, cold and reflective. I put the phone in my pocket and walked slowly downstairs. At the company entrance, she stood at the bottom of the steps. Her coat was a bit messy, hair unkempt. She had clearly rushed here. Seeing me, she visibly relaxed and walked quickly to me. "Can you talk to me for a few minutes?" I stopped, neither agreeing nor refusing. She looked up at me. "I want to explain what happened before." I didn't speak, just looked at her. Her voice tightened. "I was emotional during that time. Jackson, he did a lot of things that annoyed me. My temper was bad with you too. If you could just understand me a little." I interrupted her. "Get to the point." She froze, as if surprised. She bit her lip. "I want to see if we can start over." I had no emotional fluctuation, just watch her quietly. Seeing my silence, her voice became chaotic. "I can see your current state. You've become very stable. You weren't like this before. You used to listen to me, willing to accommodate me, not shut me out like this." I spoke calmly. "You came to find me not because you want to start over. She raised her eyes. Then why? I looked at her. Because you're unstable now. Her face stiffened. She opened her mouth to speak, but couldn't, only repeating, do you really not want to salvage this at all? I took out my phone, unlocked the screen, and showed it to her. Not showing off, just placing the fact in front of her. At the top of the interface was a message from Nora. Are you downstairs? I'm waiting for you at the door. Sent less than 2 minutes ago. Elena's hand paused in the air, as if pinned down. She stared at the message, her expression a mix of panic and confusion. She whispered, Are you with her now? I took back the phone. That's not within your scope to ask. Her breathing scrambled, as if she didn't know where to step next. I said calmly, We're done talking. She stood there stunned, unable to form a sentence. Nora came out from the side entrance. Seeing us, her steps paused, but she didn't retreat. She just stood there, waiting quietly for me. I walked toward her. She nodded slightly, not asking, not glancing behind me. We walked side by side toward the exit. On the steps behind us, Elena stood in place, not calling out to me again. Her silhouette looked lonely in the light, but that was no longer a matter I was responsible for. When we reached the parking spot, Nora asked, Want to walk for a bit first? I said, Let's walk. She didn't ask what just happened, simply followed silently. We walked along the river path. The wind on our faces was a little cool. She pulled her scarf up and glanced sideways at me. Heart still heavy. I said no. She nodded, asking no more, putting her hands in her pockets, her pace matching mine. The lights illuminated the road ahead, section by section, clear and bright. Every step we took forward was steady. No looking back, and no need to look back. Story complete.